pass to Smith. Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to fuel Rockets News. It's the Rockets Fuel podcast presented by the Believe Network. I am one of your co-hosts, Lachard Binkley. Of course, you can find me on Twitter, X, at Binkley Hoops. And you can always find my written work over at SB Nation or The Dream Shake. And before we get into another Rockets win, I want to give my co-host a chance to introduce himself.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Vator. You can find me on the Twitter X app, and you can also find me on Instagram at Vator Sports.
So, Vader, we have 5 straight wins for the Houston Rockets. This is their best ball they've been playing since their early winning streak earlier in the year, which I think was 6 games in a row. They're playing some of the best basketball of the entire season. They've won 7 out of 8. And don't look now, the Rockets are now, it's not really even a joke anymore. The Rockets are now only 3 games behind the Golden State Warriors for that last play-in spot. And the Golden State Warriors actually take on the Los Angeles Lakers tonight. And we're actually going to get a little bit more into that a little bit later. We're going to talk about the chance of the Rockets actually making the playoffs and if they have a real chance, because Golden State has a lot more tougher schedule than the Rockets coming up. But we want to talk a little bit more about this game, actually not even tonight. That just finished maybe like an hour ago where the Rockets took on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Of course, Cleveland Cavaliers didn't have Evan Mobley, but the Rockets didn't have Tari Eason, Alperen Sengun, or Cam Whitmore. So we really can't talk about injuries. And one thing to beat up on the Washington Generals of the world, which they did the last game. It's another thing to beat a really good Cavs team that still have 3 All-Stars and Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Jared Allen. The Rockets dominated them from start to finish. This is one of the best Rockets games of the year. A lot of time the Rockets can start off slow and then try to fight back at the end of the game. But in this game, the Rockets dominated from the tip all the way to the end of the game. They did not let their foot off the gas. Jalen Green had another great game, overall game. He had a double-double. Fred VanVleet, I mean, he was dishing all over the place. The first half, he had 12 assists with 0 turnovers. In the second half, he said, okay, this is what I'm going to do in the second half. I'm going to go ahead and start scoring in the second half. And that's what he did in the second half. He had 11 points in the second half, as he has been playing great ever since he this All-Star break and coming back from his injury. He has been passing all over the court. He's been directing the team. He's been a real leader on this team. And, of course, all 5 Rocket stars were in double figure. And, of course, I can't forget about Thompson, who was just all over the court on the defensive end. He's playing above the rim. He's really flourishing in that dunker spot. He has just been a revelation ever since. It seemed like he's really getting more comfortable on the court, knowing exactly where he needs to be, knowing that he doesn't have to camp out a three-point line and pretend he's not a three-point shooter, because he's not a three-point shooter yet. He knows the strengths of his game, and he's not trying to play above that. So, Vader, what did you see in the Rockets' 5th straight victory?
Man, I went into this game today. I was kind of excited because it was it was an early game or whatever. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not necessarily think we were going to win this game. It was fun playing against the Wizards the last game. Their defense offered absolutely no resistance.
Yes.
Like, the Rockets got every single thing that they wanted, whether it be like wide open shots at the 3-point line or get into the basket, for dunks and layups. Of course, there was that, and we got to talk about that play. Like, man, we'll get back to the Cavs victory, but the Jalen Green, where he broke dude's ankles, he fell on the ground, he stared at him, gave him the James Harden stare, right? Then he shot the 3 and pulled a Steph Curry, did not even watch the ball get halfway to the basket and turned around and ran away and switched it. It was crazy. Like, that was probably like one of the craziest highlights that I've seen from a Houston Rockets basketball player since James Harden was here. Actually, the Sengun Cook Wemby, that's up there too. But like, as far as just like a singular play, man, that was crazy. And the fact that he had enough confidence to not even watch it go in, it was just icing on the cake. So like, I want to talk about that. But getting back to the game at hand though, like, the Wizards were not good. They employ Jordan Poole, Kyle Kuzma. Those are, I think, their 2 best players. And then you have Denny and a few other guys who, they're still trying to find their way in the NBA. So like, there wasn't a whole lot to take away from that game other than it was a fun game to watch if you're a Houston Rockets fan. The Cleveland Cavaliers, I believe, entered tonight as I think they had like the 6th best record in the league. And that's even with Evan Mobley missing a lot of time. In fact, I think they have a better record without Evan Mobley than they do with Evan Mobley. So I don't want to hear any excuses. They still had, like you said, 3 All-Star players: Jared Allen, um, what's his name, Donovan
Darius
Mitchell,
Garland. Yeah.
and Darius Garland. So, and we actually entered this game without an All-Star, right? And the guy who we think is an All-Star caliber player, in Alperen Şengün, is out with an injury. So, if you factor all those things in going into this game, I'm thinking maybe we'll give them a tough game. We play really well at home, but I was not, like I said, I was not necessarily expecting a victory. So, like, it was very gratifying to see them not only win, but like destroy them. It did not look like like if you were to go into the game and you were to say, one team was going to utterly dominate the other one, I don't think anybody would have put money on the Rockets being that team that was going to be the dominant team. So proud of those guys. Jabari Smith Jr., low-key had a pretty good game. He had a couple of like bobbles on some passes where I felt like he needed to finish to like complete a highlight play. But like he overall had a really solid game. Of course, like you said, Fred VanVleet, I think, man, he looked like the floor general that the Rockets hired him to be. And I think he's able to do that when some of the other guys like Jalen Green and Thompson are like stepping up and being the guys that we thought they could be. Now he can kind of take more of a backseat and facilitate, get guys involved. And then, like you said, when he does need to score it, he can do that too. I think he finished with 16 assists. I do know he had 12 assists and 0 turnovers at halftime. And then geez, like this guy right here. I know a lot of people want to Scoot Henderson, and but I'm gonna tell you one thing that Scoot Henderson will never be able to do the way Thompson does, and that is
rebound.
defend, rebound. Like this guy is an absolute monster. I don't know if you saw. There was an article that came out today, and Udoka was basically gushing over how good of a defender he already is as a rookie, and like you don't see guys as advanced defensively as he is, and he's already that, right? His speed, his ability to recover, he can stay down in the stance. He can still get up there and contest shots. I mean, we've seen him guard Devin Booker effectively. We've seen him guard Kevin Durant, Bobo, who is not, he ain't like some kind of like crazy offensive player, but he's like 7
But he's still 8 feet.
He's 8 feet tall, right? And then, we saw, like I said, we saw what he did to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. We saw what he did to Jalen Brunson. We saw what he did tonight to Donovan Mitchell. Like he is literally cutting the water off on these guys. These guys are not getting to their spots on him. They're not getting easy baskets when he's on them, and it's kind of amazing to watch. And then now you see him coming into having some comfort level, like offensively, like you said, getting in that dunker spot, being able to play off the other guys. And then when he does get the ball, he's a flash, right? So, and then I say all that to get to the last guy, Jalen Green. He strung together. I mean, like since they made the announcement, you know what announcement I'm talking about. Since they made the announcement, man, he's been acting different. I don't know if like I don't know. I don't want to attribute it to that, but like,
hey, although you know how it is when you have kids. Your priorities change, man. You start taking stuff a lot more seriously. That's all we can say.
That is a fact. And even Tariq's mom made a little joke about it on social media today. So I don't think we're out of line with making a joke. And she was like, I need to basically, to put it in a nutshell, she basically was like, I need to find Tari somebody so he could get locked in because Jalen is acting up right now. Like we've seen like the flashes that he's showing right now. Some of the stuff we've seen before, but like I know people are going to say, well, he does this all the time after the All-Star break. Well, to some extent, you're right, but I'm going to tell you real quick, like what I see that's different, right? Okay, so we see the scoring jump that happens every single season. It happened last year, it happened this rookie season. But what we have not seen is this complete game, Jalen Green. This guy who's going out there and playing on both ends. He's defending, he's giving effort, he's getting rebounds. He's making good decisions in the open court when he's had an opportunity to make good passes. You saw it tonight. So I don't know, man. Like I think, I've been saying on this podcast, I think Ime Udoka had to kind of tear down, like he had to kind of tear Jalen down to the foundation and rebuild him back up. And I think you're starting to see the fruits of that exercise because like he is like we always said he could score, right? When he's on, but I don't think anybody has ever said that he was a complete basketball player. And I think you're seeing that now.
Yeah, because it's just follow up on Jalen. I'm not even going to talk about the scoring, which was great, but he had 11 rebounds. He had the 4 assists, and not just the 4 assists, but it's just the 1 turnover. Because we all know, beginning of the year, Jalen kind of struggled with holding on to the ball or making the incorrect pass or maybe passing a little bit too late, but he only had the one turnover and he also had 2 blocks, which is, that tells me he's giving all out effort. And even though Jalen had been struggling early in the year with his offense, he has been playing better defense. If you really look at his game and not just go by the box scores, he had been playing better defense this season. He's been giving a lot more effort on the defensive end, um, picking up guys full court, getting in a passing lane. Like I said, we saw the day where he had the 2 blocks. He's just a lot more active around the ball. It's not just because sometimes things are not going to show up in the box scores. Sometimes it's about effort, and that's something that Emmy, I know he pays a lot of attention to. It's not just about, what you're going to put up in the box scores, not what you're going to do, on the highlight reel. It's about you putting in effort on the defensive end. It's about you fighting over screens. It's about how much effort you're giving on the rebounding side of the, when it comes to it. All those things is what Jalen's doing right now. And this is something I know we both been saying all year long. I think we've both been saying this since Jalen's probably been in the NBA is you have to be patient with these young guys. You have to think about it. The first 2 years, whatever you want to say about Salas, whether it was his fault, front office fault, whoever fault it was, there was no development going on the first 2 seasons. This is the first year there's a structure in place. People are being held accountable. So if you're Jalen and you go all the way back to your AAU days or even before that in high school, no, it really probably wasn't much of a structure. It was, hey, Jalen, you're the best guy on the team. We're going to get you the ball and everybody's going to get out of the way. And if you mess up, well, we'll be all right because you're the best player on the team. And we're not really going to probably hold you responsible. Well, now, Emma didn't draft Jalen. Not to say he doesn't like Jalen, but he didn't draft Jalen. He didn't have anything that's, holding him to, well, I got to make Jalen a good player because so-and-so, no matter what he does. Well, no, Emma is coming in. I'm going to hold everybody responsible. If you're not playing well, you're not going to be playing in the fourth quarter. And we've seen that all the way from Dylan Brooks all the way down to the young guys. So now I think Jalen's realizing, like, hey, if I go out and do these certain things every single night, I'm going to be successful. And then Emma is going to have that confidence in me. And now you're seeing a totally different Jalen Green now.
If you wouldn't, like, coming into this game, like, I don't know how you feel about Donovan Mitchell, but, like, he's clearly a star in the NBA, right? He's a guy who's made multiple All-Star teams. I think he scored 70 points in the game. If I did not tell you who was who, and this was your first ever basketball game that you've ever watched in your life, you don't know these guys, from Paul or whoever, and I told you one of these guys is a perennial all-star, and the other guy is a dude who his fan base wants to give away and has given up on and thinks it's not like an NBA level basketball player. Did you see like when they matched up tonight? Like Jalen looked like a superior player, and I know it's a 1-game sample size, but this is the kind of ability that this guy has. He just turned 22 years old, and his ability is, I mean, not now. Like I said, over this, past 9 or 10 games, you've kind of been able to see like what he's capable of on both ends of the floor, and like being able to play a complete game. And like I'm gonna be honest with you, like. I know it's a consistency thing. I know that he has to figure this out. But I think having Fred VanVleet in the building, having Ime Udoka in the building, having a guy like Dylan Brooks to go up against in practice, who I remember vividly earlier in the season say, if I were to talk to Jaylen Green, I would tell him this is how I'm going to defend. And I'm sure he's been doing it. Like Jaylen Green's left hand was pretty weak. And I think that's something that Dylan Brooks pointed out in a press conference situation or an interview. I forgot what it was. And you can tell like these guys have been working with him. I don't know, what has gone on behind the scenes, but I can tell you like without a shadow of doubt, I do think that he's gotten better. And honestly, I wasn't sure he would figure it out this year. I just think I feel like he's just too talented to like give up on. You know what I mean? Like I know the contract situation is coming up. I know a decision is going to have to be made on him pretty soon. And I don't know if the contract might be something that forces him out of Houston because they can't agree on numbers. But I feel like by the time he is 25 years old, he's going to be a very good basketball player. Because like I remember even telling you like a few podcasts ago, if he could just make wide open threes, I think the whole conversation around him changes. If he's just making threes. And like, so he has games now where he's still not really hitting his shot, but I think he's made a concerted effort to go to the basket and be aggressive. And if he just continues to do that only, just go to the basket, be aggressive, finish at the rim. I think that the 3-point shooting is. We've seen guys like who had no, form, no jump shot at all, like eventually become at least passable shooters. Rajon Rondo, Jason Kidd. I mean, the list goes on. So I'm not 100% super concerned about whether or not he'll be able to hit, open shots in the future. But like just the development in the other areas of this game is what has impressed me the most.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even you go look at players like Brook Lopez, who nobody ever thought he was going to be a 3-point shooter. And I know he's a center, but that ought to tell you even more that it's possible to become you don't have to be an elite 3-point shooter. Everybody's not going to be Steph Curry, but you can be a passable 3-point shooter. You can be a 36%. If Jalen Green can get the 36% consistently as a 3-point shooter, and you add along with his athleticism and his speed, that's a whole different level of Jalen Green we're talking about now. Because beginning of the year he was hovering around 30%, 32% for most of the year, but even tonight he was 4 for 9, and that opens up his entire game. Because now if you're a defense, what do? Do you get up on Jalen and try to guard him tight, because then he can go around you, or do you back up off of him? If he's shooting 36, 37% from three, I mean that just opens up his entire game. And then how exactly do you stop him on that end of the court? So yeah, I think the sky's the limit for Jalen. Yes, like you said, the contract is gonna come up one way or another, whether he's playing good or bad. It's gonna be something that's gonna come up next season. But right now, as far as where the Rockets are playing and reason why the Rockets are winning, Jalen Green is probably the number one reason why they continue to win, even without their best player, Alperen Sengun, not being on the court anymore. And that kind of leads us into the second topic.
One thing real quick. And the last thing I want to say about that Jalen Green situation is that, like, I feel like we have become spoiled as a fan base. The James Harden era, we did not really keep young players and develop them. It's been a long time since we've drafted a young guy, and we have like 6 of them now. We've drafted young players, and like actually had to go through a process of developing them and being patient and watching them go through growing pains. You don't always get a Hakeem Olajuwon out of the draft who's like who comes into the league already ready and already dominating or whatever. Some of these guys take a few years before they actually become what they are going to be. And so, like, I don't know. I think to some extent, we need to slow down on the like throwing guys away thing. Like sometimes you can kind of tell. There's a few guys who we did draft in the first round over the past few years who are no longer here, and they still haven't like latched on in other places in the NBA. But like when you have a guy who like has he has accomplished some things in this league. Like he has some skins on the wall as far as like when you look at how many points he scored in a period of time, how many 30-point games he's had, how many 40-point games. So there's something there, right? And so like. Yeah. And I think the front office is kind of like, okay, we see something. We've made an investment in this guy. Like, we're going to try to see the process through. And I think, like I said, right now, you're kind of starting to see, hopefully, him turn the corner. We'll see, obviously, how he could tank. There's still a lot of season left. And then, but, like, I feel like his confidence, like, you see him playing with a different bounce, a different swagger to himself right now. And so, like, I don't see him going in the tank, even if he comes out struggling in a game or two. I don't think he's gonna like have a rough ending to the season.
Yeah, and that kind of leads us into the next, our last part that we're going to be talking about here, and that's if the Rockets can make the playoffs. Because honestly, it really comes down to, yes, you don't necessarily control your future because you still have a team in front of you in Golden State who's right now 3 games in front of you. You only have one head-to-head game left with them. So you're going to need them to lose some games along the way. But at the very least, you can make them sweat because, like you said, you do have that one game against them early April. They play tonight. They play against the Lakers. And over the next 10 games, if you go look at their schedule, 7 out of 10 games are against winning teams. You go look at the Rockets' next 10 games, 4 out of the next 10 are against winning teams. And I think that's something else that we didn't point out enough is that, yes, the Rockets did struggle from January until probably the beginning of March, where they didn't win any back-to-back games at any point in between there. But they also had a really tough schedule. If you go back and look at some of the games, I mean, it was like I think it was a stretch where they played, OKC 3 times, or was it Phoenix 3 times? Was one of them they played 3 times, the other one 2 times, and then they had like a lot of just tough games in a row where they were just playing a lot of really good teams back to back to back. And now the schedule is kind of lightening up for them. They play in Washington coming up next. Of course, you can't take any team lightly, but Washington is the absolute worst team in the league. And then they also have games up against Chicago. They have games against Utah. They have some really winnable games coming up if they continue to play the way they've been playing right now. I mean, by this time next week, we could talk about the Rockets possibly being maybe even a game or two behind the Golden State Warriors. And wouldn't that be something kind of poetic justice where the Rockets, for once, knock the Warriors out of the playoffs instead of vice versa?
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, it doesn't make up for all of the like heartache they caused us in the past, but it
Yeah,
would be. I would enjoy it. I'd get a kick out of it for sure to see like Draymond and Clay and stuff have to go home and watch the playoffs on TV. But
yeah,
yeah, like this is not like, especially after Shingun, after Tari got hurt, that was a huge blow, right? When we knew we
yeah,
weren't getting Tari Eason back, and then after losing your best player out from Shingun, you kind of feel like, okay, this season's over. Let's get Cam Whitmore some minutes. Let's get Amen some minutes. Hopefully, we can get Jalen going or whatever. And now look at us right now. We're actually having a conversation about making a play-in tournament. Um, and honestly, like even if they make it or don't make it, they're playing for something. You know what I
yeah,
mean? This is the first time that these guys have actually played meaningful basketball games. And I think that in and of itself is not just an accomplishment, but I think as far as like development and them getting a taste of what it feels like to play games that mean something, like I said, and then also, having to go out there every night and lock in and be focused. Like I think this is great for them. You know what I mean? Like we always talk about how young they are and how a lot of them have not been on, veteran teams because they've been here the whole time. And then,
yeah,
coming out of OTE for a man and coming out of G League Ignite and AAU circuit and all that kind of stuff. Um, this is actually, I feel like, a great opportunity for them to play meaningful basketball games. And we can kind of see what some of these guys are made of. So far, so good. Like I saw, the post game interview, Vanessa interviewed Amin, and
Amen. Yeah,
I'm paraphrasing, but one of the things he said was that we're trying to win all of the rest of our games because we want to make the playoffs. And so, like they're talking about it. This is a conversation that's happening in the locker room,
oh
uh,
yeah,
and you could tell like when they come out on the floor, like recently, these guys have been locked in, as evidenced by the 5-game winning streak. I think that they've won 7 games, 7
7
out
out
of
of
their
8.
last. So
Yeah,
yeah, man, like this is good, man. This is good. Like so, like even if we don't make it, like I feel us as Rockets fans, like we should just enjoy these next few weeks and just kind of like watch this Houston Rockets basketball team and see what these young guys can do. Because like if you really look at it, we're playing what is it? Jalen's 22, just turned 22. Man Thompson is 21, and
yeah,
Jabari is 20. These are the only 3 of our young core that's like standing right now, and they're going out there and performing. And with the help of obviously Fred VanVleet, who today like he's just been a really good facilitator, and then I guess some of the leadership of Dylan Brooks. But for the most part, I would say our young guys are doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
yeah. And I just want to go through the Warriors, just looking at their schedule coming up. So tonight they play the Lakers. The next game after that is against the Knicks. Then they got to play the Grizzlies, which, yeah, that's one of those, they could lose, but I doubt they lose that game. Then they play the Pacers, who, of course, is a really good team. Then they got to go to Minnesota, to Miami, to Orlando, and then they play the Hornets. But I don't think people have been paying attention. The Hornets have been playing a lot better lately, basketball. So that's not necessarily a gimme game. Now, if you have to pick, you probably pick them to win that game. But just kind of finishing off, they play the Spurs, and then they play the Mavericks, a game that was postponed due to the death on their coaching staff. And then they play the Mavericks before, of course, the game on April the 4th, which who knows by then, that may be the biggest game of the year, the April 4th game. The Warriors come to Houston to play the Rockets, which absolutely I will definitely be at that game. But the Rockets are 4 games behind the Warriors when it comes to in the loss column. And if I'm not mistaken, the Warriors do have these season series, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember offhand. I can't remember if they've already played them 2 times already. I think so. I have to look that up. But the Rockets are 4 games in the loss column behind them. So Is it likely that they catch the Warriors? I wouldn't put money on it, but I would say the percentages are going up a lot more every night. I mean, when I said a couple of days ago, I said 30%. The Warriors lose tonight and they lose the next game, that might start creeping up to 40%. I mean, it might start getting closer and closer to 50-50 because the Warriors have a really tough schedule at the end of the year. I mean, you're talking about they still got another game with the Lakers at the end of the year. They got a game against the Pelicans, another game with the Mavericks. I mean, they have some really tough games coming up. So, and Steph has been hobbled. I think he may be back tonight. Draymond Green was injured. I don't know if he's even playing tonight. So, they're an older team with a lot of mileage on them. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Rockets can really make the Warriors sweat these last few games. And like you said, even if they don't make it, it really comes down to you have improved already from last season. And how many people going into this season have the Rockets? If the Rockets go, I think 10-6 or 9-6 or 10-5 in their last games, they can actually get to 41-41. How many people you really thought had the Rockets actually winning 41 games this season? I ain't gonna lie and say I did because I didn't have them winning 41. I said high end 35-40 if everything goes right, but I had them more closer to 35, 36 wins. So I would be wrong if they were to get the 41 wins. I mean, I don't know about you, where you had them at the beginning of the year, but I definitely didn't have them winning 41 games.
I think I had them at like 38 wins, and I feel
Yeah.
like honestly, if they reach that with the hobbled team, I was considering 38 wins with a full squad, not
Yeah.
like with you missing Tari Eason, who, like I said, objectively speaking, he's probably when he was on the court this year was probably our third best player behind Şengün and Dylan Brooks. I mean, not Dylan Brooks, Şengün and Fred VanVleet. And
Yeah.
then now you don't have Şengün either. And then, like, we don't say his name very much, but that guy who used to start at point guard, last year, we didn't even he never made it to the roster. He never
It's
played
a
a
big
regular
hole on
season
the
game.
roster. Yeah, wherever you think about him, that's a big hole that I know
Yeah,
MA, when he came in, did not expect to be dealing with.
right. And so, like, if they still are able to get to 38, somewhere between 38, even 37, 37 to 40 wins, when you consider all the adversity they've gone through this year, I think that is, that's a win. That's a massive win.
Yeah.
And then, like you pointed out, like the Warriors actually have a pretty tough schedule going down the stretch, and our schedule is probably a little bit easier than theirs. So there is an avenue, there's a world where in a week or two we could be sitting here and having a discussion about how the Rockets are tied with the Warriors, or one game behind the Warriors, or one game ahead of the Warriors. So, like, I'm just interested to see how this plays out. We're playing meaningful basketball in March for the first time in 3 years. So
Yeah.
that's enough to be happy and enough to celebrate in and of itself.
Yeah. Before we wrap up the show, I just want to go over the Rocket schedule over the next few games. So, of course, they just got through beating the Cavs. They have the Wizards. I mean, that should be a win. They have the Bulls. Even though the Bulls have been playing better, I mean, you're playing at home. I mean, if I had to put money on it, I'll put money on the Rockets winning that game. Then you have the Jazz, and then you have the Trailblazers before you play the Thunder. So over the next 4 games, even if you go 3-1, if you go 4-0, even better. It's a possibility they can go 4-0 in these next 4 games. But if
I
you
mean,
go
because
three and one,
these are not the same Warriors. Like,
no,
we could go 3-1, and they could potentially, like, you
go one
know
and three.
right. You know what I mean? So, like, we're not out of this by any means.
Yeah. So I mean, the fact that we're even talking about this, I think that should say a lot about the Rockets coaching staff and Coach Udoka and Tiago Splitter and all the guys, Ben Sullivan, all the guys there. That would say a lot about them because I know some people were having some questions when the Rockets were struggling in January and February, a little bit of March. People were starting to question. I even saw it on our favorite app, Twitter X, like, oh, did they make the wrong decision to hire MA and what is MA doing and this and that? And now you're starting to see like a lot of these things that he's been preaching about all year about physicality, about, putting your will on the other team. Because we saw like after the San Antonio game, Victor Wembanyama was like, man, this is the hardest I've been guarded all year. The most physical team I've been playing against all year. Same thing Popovich says. Some of the other teams have said the same thing. And you're starting to see uh, MA's vision starting to come to kind of fruition on the court of the Rockets, not necessarily being the most talented team or the best offensive team or the best shooting team, but they're starting to be one of the more physical teams in the NBA. And now they're starting to pay off with wins and not just, moral victories.
And not just that, but also, like, he pointed out, like you were talking about being physical. he specifically said toughness, and
Yeah.
was it after the Lakers game where he said we got punked by a team that's not known for, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like
he did.
that's not known. He basically is like, they are not like that, and we let them punk us. We cannot, win basketball games, this way. And since
Yeah.
then, we've seen Cam Whitmore get into it with people. He got into it with Devin Booker. We saw the Bradley Beal, Jalen Green dust up. And I feel like the Thompson and Jeremy Sohan little thing where Sohan tripped him. And so, like, we're not trying to go out there and fight guys, but, like, I think the Rockets have let it be known that, hey, you're not going to, like, just treat us any kind of way. We're not going to let you trip us. We're not going to let you hit us in the head with a basketball. If you talk trash to us, we're going to give it right back to you. And, like, anybody that's ever played any kind of sports competitively, that's just part of the game. There's a mental aspect to the game and there's a physical aspect. And I think we were losing in both of those areas earlier in the season. And I think Ime Udoka definitely, he brought it. Like, we talk about culture change a lot, but I think that's something else that he definitely has instilled in these guys so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's something that the Rockets can, even if they don't make the playoffs, they can kind of build into next year when they start getting players back. And we will see, how it plays out tonight. I know, a lot of Rockets fans are going to be Lakers fans tonight. I
Oh,
don't
me
think a lot of
too.
Rockets fans would say that in the past, but a lot of Rockets fans are going to be Lakers fans tonight. So we'll see how that
Go
plays
LeBron.
out. Go LeBron. So we'll see how, if the Rockets inch even a little bit closer after tonight's game. If the Rockets practice tomorrow, I plan on being out at that, try to bring you some of that coverage. I'll be out at the Utah game next Saturday. So we will definitely continue to bring you coverage. We'll definitely have some more podcasts next week. We appreciate the support. Let us know down in the comments. Do you think the Rockets can make the playoffs? And at what percentage do you put it at? Do you put it at 40% now, 50%, maybe even a little bit higher, depending on what happens tonight? Let us know down in the comments what you think. And as usual, we appreciate the support. We appreciate everybody that subscribes to the channel. Even the ones that are just finding us for the first time, we're going to continue to build on the channel, continue to do things better. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button and like button. That helps us with the algorithm. And Vader, as usual, I appreciate you jumping on today, being the co-host.
As always, I appreciate you, brother. You do a great job, getting out to the arena. I know a lot of people don't realize how much work goes into that and how much work it goes to continuously put content on the YouTube channel, man. So we definitely appreciate everything that you do as well.
Man, absolutely. I appreciate that, man. And we're going to continue to do bigger and better things here at Rocket Fuel, presented by Believe Network. And as usual, we appreciate all the support. And make sure you check out the next episode of Rocket Fuel Podcast.